Today's topic, the title is Don't Look Back. It's Don't Look Back. So I'm just going to jump right into it, being that we already sat here long enough. Everybody's stomach is full, or at least got something to eat. So the scripture that I got this subject from is Genesis 19:26. And it says, "But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt." I'm sure everybody's probably familiar with the scripture, familiar with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, in this particular part of the Bible, God had granted Lot and his family some grace and some mercy. He had granted them an opportunity to escape from Sodom and Gomorrah. So Sodom and Gomorrah was a place that was filled with sin. It was filled with destruction, filled with sexual immorality, selfishness, all type of abominable acts. So much so that God was ready to destroy the city and everyone that was in it. But before he decided to destroy the city, he gave Lot and his family an opportunity to escape. And as the story goes, after the family had packed up all of their belongings and they were on their way out of the town, Lot's wife looked back. Now, the story doesn't tell us why she looked back. The Bible doesn't tell us what she was looking back at or what she was looking back for. All we know is that when she decided to look back at a place and a time that was toxic, a place that was unhealthy, a place that was destructive to her and her family, that her fate was sealed forever. Now, we can use our imaginations and come up with different reasons of why Lot's wife looked back. So even me personally, I can think of times when I was stuck in unhealthy relationships, toxic situations, and when God gave me the opportunity to escape, I didn't only look back, sometimes I went back to a place where God had turned his back on. So as I read the story, as I read the scripture, I started to think of, why did Lot's wife turn back? The first thing I came up with was maybe it was the fear of the unknown. You know, sometimes we are stuck in these unhealthy relationships, these toxic relationships, that we develop this fear of moving ahead because we don't know what lies ahead. We can get so comfortable with the misery of today that we are afraid to walk towards like the hope of tomorrow. You know, we can get comfortable with the pain. We can start to make adjustments to the toxicity, to the discomfort, and before you know it, we're coming up with all type of justifications and different reasons of why we're staying. Like, you know, maybe he or she is not that bad. You know, it could be worse. But the truth of the matter is a lack of faith, and it's a lack of trust in God, where we decide to look back or go back to a situation that we know is wrong for us because we're afraid of what God has for us that we can't see. As I thought more about it, I thought maybe Lot's wife looked back because she started to overvalue the time that she stayed in Sodom and Gomorrah. You see, Lot and his family, they stayed for years in Sodom and Gomorrah. And it could have been that time that pulled on her heart, pulled on her attention, that caused her to look back. Once again, I can think of times when I was in situations or in relationships, and because I stayed in there for 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, and I knew I should have walked away, I didn't, because I started to overvalue the quantity of time more than I valued the quality of time. You know, I started to regret or be fearful of walking away because I didn't want to feel like I wasted my time. I didn't want to start over. I didn't want to look like a failure in front of others. And because of that time, I started to look back instead of walking away. But I have to always remember and always remind myself that if God has given me an opportunity to escape from a toxic situation or relationship, it's because I was mismanaging that time. So that was one of the thoughts I had. Another thought I had, maybe she looked back because she started to value the time she spent. Another reason that I came up with, that Lot's wife probably looked back because she started to feel like she could never get better or do better than where she came from. You know, when we're stuck in these unhealthy relationships, we start to have this feeling of inadequacy. We started to question our own value, our own worth. We start to wonder if I'll ever do better or get better than the situation or the relationship that I'm currently in. We start to question if anyone else will love me, if anyone else would accept me for all the flaws and all the flaws and faults that I bring to the table. Start to question, am I good enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I smart enough? Am I tall enough? We start to just question ourselves because we're in this toxic relationship for so long, or situation for so long, that we start to question our own value. So maybe she looked back because she started to feel like she couldn't get better or do better than where she was already. The last thought that I had before we jump into the conversation is that maybe Lot's wife looked back because she started to worry about what she was losing. She started to worry about what she was walking away from. Now, we can be honest, we've all probably been in some relationships that weren't the best, but they had some good times. They had some decent memories. They had some perks to them. So when it was time to walk away, we started to think of those good memories. We started to think of those favorable times, and that kept us stuck in the situation. Even if the majority of the relationship was toxic and unhealthy for us. We started to look back and we started to go back to a place that was toxic. So I can go on and on, come up with different reasons of why Lot's wife looked back. And I should probably look back. But all we know for a fact is when she decided to look back at a place in a time that was unhealthy, that was toxic, that her fate was sealed forever and she missed out on what God was trying to take her to. And that's what we're going to discuss today. Not only why we look back, but I want to go into what took us in certain places and why we look back, how to move forward, and how to prepare ourselves for what God really has for us. Whether it's a relationship or a career, a job, wherever it might be. So, as you know, or as you can see, I give you guys a little pamphlet, and we're going to open the discussion up like we did before. But before we even open up discussion, when you hear that scripture or when you hear the thought of "don't look back," you know, I just want to pick your brains. I would like for everybody to start to share, and then we can go through the questions. And of course, just like the last time, if something touches your heart, feel free to open up and talk and share. I want this to be a comfortable and safe place, a transparent place. No matter the number, I want us to